Hey guys, tonight we're traveling back, way back, to a land where even sleep had a god, and the simple act of laying your head down was part of a grand cosmic plan. You find yourself beneath the slow spin of ancient stars over Egypt, where the air hums with the pulse of the Nile and the scent of lotus drifts through the dusk. You're not clutching a plush memory foam pillow, though. No, your head is resting on something far less forgiving, a cool slab of polished stone. Comforting, right? You probably won't survive this sleep experiment longer than a few minutes, but an Egyptian noble might have called it bliss. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're already tucked in, drop your location and your local time in the comments below. It's oddly soothing to see where everyone's drifting off from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand, or maybe float, on the edge of an ancient room. The walls are cool and painted with faded ochre and blue. A single oil lamp flickers near a low bed of woven reeds. And at the top of that bed sits something that looks a bit like a small sculpture, a curved cradle perched on a short pillar of stone. That's your ancient Egyptian pillow. Not soft, not plush, not even close, but somehow it was believed to bring peace, protection, and good dreams. You lower yourself onto the bed, and the stone presses against your neck, shockingly cold at first, then slowly warming with your skin. You imagine how this simple object carried both practical and spiritual weight. In a land where heat lingered even after sunset, a cool headrest wasn't such a bad idea. And unlike a fabric pillow that trapped sweat and dust, this one could be wiped clean. An early innovation in hygiene, millennia before anyone uttered the word bacteria. Historians still argue whether these headrests were used by everyone or mostly by the elite. But one thing's clear: sleep in Egypt wasn't just rest, it was preparation for eternity. The Egyptians believed the head was sacred, the seat of life force, and protecting it, especially during sleep, was crucial. That's why these pillow stones were more than furniture. They were small altars of nightly rebirth. As you lie there, you notice the graceful curve that supports the neck. It's carved to follow the natural slope of the head, and the base widens like the stem of a lotus, a shape symbolizing resurrection. Some were made of alabaster, pale and almost translucent. Others of limestone, or even dark granite that shimmered faintly in lamplight. If you were particularly wealthy or vain, your headrest might be inlaid with precious stones or engraved with tiny hieroglyphs wishing you pleasant dreams and divine protection. One record from the Middle Kingdom described a royal artisan whose sole task was to carve headrests for the court, a profession halfway between sculptor and sleep therapist. You imagine his workshop filled with the steady rasp of copper chisels, the scent of wet sand used for polishing, and the meticulous care that went into shaping something meant to touch a pharaoh's skin. Every angle mattered, every surface had to be perfect. But practicality lurked behind the poetry. Egypt's climate was unrelenting. Imagine sleeping on woven mats under a thatched roof, your body coated in a thin sheen of desert dust. A soft cushion would trap heat and grime. A polished stone, on the other hand, stayed refreshingly cool all night long. And if you happened to be wearing a complex wig or a head of oiled braids, a likely scenario, this kind of pillow didn't ruin your hairstyle. Small wins. Of course, there were skeptics even then. One scribe famously grumbled about the cruel block that mocks the weary neck. He might have preferred a nap on a pile of linen, but linen was expensive, and in the grand Egyptian worldview, comfort came second to meaning. After all, the gods didn't sleep on goose down either. There's a lovely irony to the whole thing. You picture the mighty pharaoh, absolute ruler of the two lands, laying down on a glorified rock while being fanned by servants and serenaded by harpists. Power and discomfort side by side. You almost want to reach out and whisper, "Buddy, you've conquered Nubia. Maybe spring for a cushion." And yet, as your mind drifts in the quiet of this imagined chamber, it starts to make sense. The pillow stone isn't meant to lull you into softness. It's meant to keep you alert, to keep your spirit just awake enough to guard against the creeping dangers of the night. The Egyptians believed that sleep was a state where the soul could slip free and wander. You needed a headrest that didn't just hold your neck, it held your very essence in place. You shift slightly, feeling the balance of comfort and vigilance. It's not that the stone pillow is cruel, it's just honest. It doesn't pretend to be gentle. It's solid, dependable, eternal. The kind of object that could survive 3,000 years buried in sand and still look exactly as it did when it cradled someone's dreams. In the next moments, you can almost hear the hum of crickets from the reeds outside, the faint splash of the Nile against its banks, and the rustle of palm leaves overhead. The city of Thebes breathes quietly, its people sleeping in rows of mud brick homes, their heads supported by smooth arches of stone. Each sleeper dreams of waking in the morning sun, or, if fate has chosen otherwise, waking in the next world entirely. Somewhere in that twilight space between wakefulness and surrender, you understand why they believed that even rest required architecture. The pillow stone isn't just an accessory, it's an anchor in a world that prized balance, symmetry, and the endless dance between life and death. And as your thoughts slow to match the rhythm of the Nile, you realize something quietly profound. In a civilization obsessed with permanence, even sleep had to be built to last forever. You stay in that twilight room, the lamp's flame trembling like a heartbeat, and your gaze drifts toward the elegant curve of the pillow stone beneath your neck. It's strange, you think, that something so unyielding could have been considered the height of comfort. But as your mind wanders deeper into the ancient night, you start to understand that this was never about softness, it was about order. The Egyptians believed that every object, even something as ordinary as a headrest, had to serve a cosmic purpose. A crooked wall offended the gods. A pillow without meaning? Unthinkable. And so every headrest, or wedis, as they called it, was carved with deliberate intention. It had to cradle the head just so, aligning the neck with the body like a miniature temple column supporting its roof. You run your hand over the smooth stone. The top curve feels surprisingly ergonomic, sloping gently like a shallow crescent moon. This was the genius of Egyptian design, practicality disguised as mysticism. The shape wasn't random, it followed the natural arc of the human neck. If you lie perfectly still, the tension melts from your shoulders. But move even a little, and the hard edge reminds you who's in charge. It's the sleep version of tough love. In the flickering lamplight, you picture an Egyptian artisan sketching this same curve on a block of limestone. He probably had no blueprint, no ruler, just his eye and memory. Each piece would have been slightly different, handcrafted for its owner. Historians still argue whether such precision came from trial and error or deep anatomical knowledge. After all, Egyptian physicians were performing rudimentary surgeries and setting broken bones long before most civilizations had figured out basic hygiene. Maybe pillow design was another form of medicine, sleep therapy, circa 2000 BCE. But there's another reason for that crescent shape: hair. Elaborate, sculptural, gravity-defying hair. Egyptian elites didn't roll into bed with messy ponytails. They wore wigs made from human hair, sheep wool, or palm fiber, oiled to a shine and often perfumed with resin or myrrh. Sleeping on a soft surface would flatten the curls or smear the oils. The stone headrest, cool and firm, preserved the masterpiece intact. Imagine waking up with your ancient blowout still perfect, a victory worth a stiff neck. One scholar once joked that the headrest was a beauty sleep device with no sense of humor. You can almost hear a noblewoman in Thebes muttering that her hair looks divine, but she hasn't felt her ears since sunset. If you look closer, you'd notice that some of these headrests were decorated with small carvings of protective gods, most commonly Bes, the squat, cheerful deity of sleep, dreams, and childbirth. Bes had a face only a mother could love, lion mane, bulging eyes, and a tongue perpetually sticking out as if to scare off evil spirits. Imagine falling asleep knowing that that little gremlin was guarding your dreams. Comforting? Slightly. Nightmare fuel? Possibly. But Bes was beloved. His image appeared on amulets, furniture, even makeup jars. He was the ancient equivalent of a nightlight shaped like a goofy cat. Your stone pillow might have his grinning face carved right on the neck curve, watching you as you drift off. Egyptians believed that dreams could invite demons or restless spirits. The head was the gateway, and the pillow your gatekeeper. Some even buried their headrests with protective spells etched into the base, like passwords to keep nightmares out. The design, the symbols, the craftsmanship, all whispered the same truth. Your head was precious, sacred. It wasn't just where you thought or spoke, it was where your soul lived. In hieroglyphic art, the head often glows with divine energy, the spark of consciousness. So the headrest didn't just hold up your skull, it guarded your essence. It's hard not to be a little humbled by that level of bedtime philosophy. You shift slightly, feeling the imaginary curve of the stone beneath you. It's surprisingly stable. The base spreads wide like the paw of a lion, giving balance even on uneven mats. Some had a slight inward taper, so they'd fit neatly between woven reeds. You start to picture how many generations lay on these same shapes, the same precise silhouette spanning centuries. And because humans never resist innovation, later designs became quite extravagant. Ivory headrests shaped like lotus flowers, wooden ones with sliding heights. A few even had small hinges, an ancient adjustable pillow. You can almost imagine a craftsman showing it off to a client, for your Royal Highness's maximum neck alignment. Egyptians may have invented the earliest ergonomic sleep accessory minus the memory foam and the late-night infomercial. But it wasn't all luxury. Commoners used simple wooden or ceramic versions, chipped from daily use. Some archaeologists have found household headrests still bearing the faint impressions of linen wraps that softened the surface. A small concession for comfort, because honestly, even divine geometry has limits when your vertebrae start complaining. Still, these stones traveled with their owners everywhere. They were packed in chests for long journeys, carried to war camps, even placed in tombs to serve in the afterlife. Imagine dying and your family thinking, well, they'll need their pillow. It's oddly tender, a gesture that says, rest well forever. There's one particularly touching discovery from a 12th dynasty burial, a tiny alabaster headrest carved for a child, smooth as river pebbles, barely 6 inches long. The curve still fits perfectly beneath the neck of a modern 7-year-old. The sculptor must have been a parent, maybe the same parent who placed it beside the little body before sealing the tomb. You can almost hear the unspoken wish, may your head never fall, may your dreams be gentle. As the lamp sputters lower, you feel the rhythm of that ancient compassion echo across the centuries. Stone against skin, form meeting purpose. It wasn't softness they sought, it was harmony. To the Egyptians, every object carried magic when balanced between earth and spirit. A pillow was no exception. And as your eyes grow heavy, you realize this is the essence of Egyptian sleep, a delicate poise between body and soul, between rest and eternity. You can almost smile at the thought that in a way, Every night, they practiced forever.
You're still in that soft amber light, though now it feels warmer, the faint prelude to dawn over ancient Egypt. The air smells faintly of smoke and sand, of baked clay and something sweet, maybe crushed lotus petals. You imagine yourself stretching after a long night on your hard but surprisingly dignified pillow stone. The first thought that crosses your mind is relief, relief that your neck still functions. And the second is gratitude for how cool the stone stayed through the night. Because that, you realize, is the real genius here. In a land where shade is a luxury and the air itself seems to shimmer with heat, coolness is sacred. The Egyptians weren't chasing softness, they were chasing temperature control. Their entire civilization clung to the river, to the single cool pulse in an otherwise burning world. A stone pillow wasn't an indulgence, it was air conditioning for the soul. You step outside, and the sun hasn't fully breached the horizon yet, but already the sand glows pale gold. The stone under your fingers still holds the night's chill, and for a brief moment, it feels like the earth itself is helping you wake gently. This was the same coolness that the ancient Egyptians sought in their headrests, an intimate connection with the natural rhythm of heat and cold, day and night. Historians still argue whether this climate adaptation was a happy accident or deliberate design. Maybe the artisans just noticed that stone didn't trap heat the way straw or linen did. Or maybe they understood something deeper, that sleep and cool kept you balanced, even-tempered, and spiritually pure. Egyptian medical texts often linked temperature with health. To overheat was to let chaos in. So every night, laying your head on cold stone might have felt like restoring cosmic order, one nap at a time. You can almost feel the ghost of that logic as you imagine slipping back into the reed bed. There's a whisper of wind from the open doorway, just enough to tickle the oil lamp's flame. You tilt your head slightly, feeling the curve of the stone cradle the nape of your neck, and for a fleeting second, it feels soothing. Not because it's comfortable exactly, but because it's stable, immovable, eternal. And that stability mattered in more ways than one. The Egyptians feared the chaos of the desert, the unpredictable winds, the swarming sandstorms, and the yawning blackness of the uninhabited dunes. Everything about their architecture, their rituals, their art aimed to impose balance on that chaos. Even at bedtime, they sought that same peace. The head, the most sacred part of the body, deserved a foundation that mirrored the pyramids themselves. Solid, enduring, symmetrical. You picture a temple scribe writing by lamplight, his stylus tapping against a clay tablet. He pauses, stretches, and glances toward his own headrest, plain, maybe made of polished limestone. The night outside hums with frogs and insects, but his thoughts are still with the work. Words that praise Ma'at, the goddess of balance and truth. Maybe, without realizing it, his stone pillow is part of his prayer, a daily nod to the order that holds the universe together. There's also a practical note that makes you smile. The desert doesn't just get hot, it gets noisy. Wind howls, dogs bark, servants shuffle. Stone doesn't rustle or sag or squeak. It's the original silent partner of the restless sleeper. One archaeologist joked that the Egyptian headrest was the first anti-snoring device, since it kept the head tilted up just enough to open the airway. You can almost imagine some royal physician claiming credit for a good night's sleep centuries before CPAP machines were a thing. And yet, as your mind drifts through this scene, you can't help but picture the darker side of desert nights. Scorpions, spiders, and the occasional mouse wandering over the floor mats. A stone base, elevated a few inches off the ground, might have served as a small line of defense. Keep your head above the crawling world. In a sense, the pillow was your fortress. You rest your head high, literally. The Egyptians were observant people. They built entire belief systems out of watching the sun rise and set, the Nile flood and retreat. It's easy to imagine them noticing that the stone surfaces in temples stayed cool long after dusk, while the surrounding air baked. Maybe one of those observant priests had a eureka moment. What if you rested your head on that same sacred coolness? What if the gods themselves preferred a chill pillow? There's a small irony here that's hard not to appreciate. While modern people spend hundreds on cooling gels and bamboo fabric, the Egyptians solved the same problem 4,000 years ago with a rock. No marketing campaign, no adjustable settings, just geology and patience. But even within this practicality, there was poetry. The Egyptians didn't just use the stone, they respected it. Alabaster in particular was prized not just for its temperature, but for its light. It glowed faintly, milky and translucent, as though it held a piece of the moon inside it. You imagine lying down, your head resting on that pale surface, while the lamplight seeps through it from beneath, soft, diffuse, like a quiet halo around your dreams. One tomb inscription even describes the deceased's headrest as the cool stone that welcomes Ra's dawn. It's a small line, but it carries the weight of eternity. In that metaphor, the sleeper's head is the rising sun, the stone the horizon that lifts it. Sleep becomes sunrise, every night a rehearsal for rebirth. Historians still debate whether that was literal religious symbolism or just poetic license. But either way, the connection between temperature, light, and spirit feels intentional. The Egyptians didn't separate the physical from the divine the way we do. Coolness wasn't just a bodily sensation, it was purity, peace, balance. And when you laid your head on that cold stone, you weren't just cooling your skin, you were aligning your soul with the rhythm of the world. You stretch out again, imagining that sensation, the contrast between warm skin and chill stone, the stillness that follows when body heat slowly fades into the material beneath. Your breathing slows. Somewhere in the distance, you hear the faint call of an ibis, the symbol of wisdom. The night feels infinite. The comfort isn't physical, it's philosophical. The stone doesn't yield to you, you yield to it. And in that surrender, maybe, lies the secret of the peaceful Egyptian night.
The morning light in Egypt doesn't just appear, it seeps. It leaks through the horizon like gold dust through papyrus fibers, turning the edges of everything to amber. You can almost feel it sliding across the room where you've spent the night, resting on your slab of cool alabaster. The lamp has burned itself to a stub. The air smells faintly of smoke and lotus. You turn your head, gently, and glance toward the wall. There, painted centuries ago, a pharaoh reclines beneath the stars. His head, of course, rests on the familiar crescent stone. Around him, hieroglyphs spiral like a slow chant. Signs for sleep, for the horizon, for rebirth. The art feels eerily alive, as though someone is still whispering a bedtime story through pigment and plaster. The Egyptians didn't leave sleep to the imagination. They documented it, carved it, illustrated it with all the care of a royal decree. On tomb walls and temple pillars, the act of resting one's head became almost divine choreography. In one panel, you see a man lying on a low bed with a small curve beneath his neck. Behind him stands a goddess, perhaps Hathor, touching his shoulder with a lotus blossom. It's not just a depiction of slumber, it's a statement that even in sleep, the gods have you covered. You trace the lines with your mind the way an archaeologist might with a brush. Every stroke tells you something. The position of the headrest, the curve of the sleeper's neck, the tiny hieroglyph near the base that might translate to Nefer, meaning beautiful, or perhaps peaceful. Historians still argue whether the symbol meant literal beauty or inner harmony, but maybe the Egyptians never separated the two. To rest well was to live beautifully. and you can imagine how that idea seeped into every corner of their world. Sleep wasn't an escape, it was a ritual. The pillow wasn't a cushion, it was an altar. Every night when you rested your head, you were reenacting the death and rebirth of the sun god Ra, descending into darkness, only to rise again with morning light. Suddenly, the shape of the headrest feels less like a convenience and more like a metaphor. That crescent wasn't just practical, it was cosmic architecture, the horizon lifting your head as Ra's boat carried you through dreams. You can almost hear the hum of life in ancient Thebes as the city stirs. Servants rolling up reed mats, children carrying jars of water, traders shouting near the docks. Everyone slept differently perhaps, but everyone knew the sight of that curved stone under a painted head. Even the poorest farmer would have seen it in temple art, a reminder that sleep was sacred, that even the humblest rest mirrored the divine order. The connection between the physical and spiritual worlds ran deep in every Egyptian artifact. The headrest was no exception. It often appeared in funerary scenes, nestled under the heads of gods or kings. In one remarkable tomb painting, Osiris himself, the lord of the afterlife, is shown reclining on a stone headrest, eyes closed, serene. The implication is subtle but powerful. Even death needs a pillow. You lean closer to the wall in your mind's eye, imagining the pigment still fresh, the artisans working by torchlight. They would have ground minerals, malachite for green, ochre for red, charcoal for black, and mixed them with egg or gum to make paint. Their brushes were reed split at the tip. Each line of hieroglyphs, each detail of a headrest carried ritual weight. They weren't just documenting life, they were maintaining it. To depict rest was to ensure it existed in eternity. There's a particular beauty in one recurring hieroglyph, a stylized headrest symbol that looks like a small bridge, a curved line atop two supports. It represented not only the object itself, but also the concept of protection, of raising the head. Some tomb inscriptions used it metaphorically, wishing that the deceased's head be lifted by the headrest of the sky. You can feel the poetry in that, the idea that the heavens themselves cradle you as you dream. One quirky tidbit that often surprises historians is how these depictions sometimes include miniature versions of the headrest floating above the sleeper's head, as if the object itself had a soul. It's oddly charming, an ancient visual metaphor for the pillow spirit watching over you, like a guardian angel, but shaped like an ergonomic wedge. You smile at the thought of some modern sleep scientist trying to decode that image with a straight face. Yes, clearly the stone possessed self-awareness, but maybe the Egyptians weren't being literal. Maybe they just understood what every insomniac knows, that the tools of rest can feel like companions when the world grows quiet. The more you study the painted scenes, the clearer it becomes. The Egyptians didn't just lie down and close their eyes. They entered sleep the way a priest entered a temple, mindful, reverent, expecting something beyond mere dreams. Even in casual domestic art, say a servant napping under a tree, you can sense the same respect. The body isn't slumped, it's composed. The head, always, is carefully supported. It's almost funny to think how modern sleep culture obsesses over posture and pillow loft, when 4,000 years ago, someone had already nailed the perfect neck angle in limestone. You can imagine a scribe advancing the benefits: improved airflow, divine alignment, guaranteed rebirth, or your silver back. Historians still argue whether the average Egyptian actually studied these depictions consciously or if the symbolism simply soaked into their lives. But the evidence, tombs, art, amulets, suggests that everyone, from the pharaoh to the farmer, shared an understanding. Sleep was sacred, a sacred state, a rehearsal for eternity, and the headrest was your passport there. As you stand before that imagined wall, the colors fading softly under the rising sun, you feel the blend of practicality and poetry that defined Egypt itself. A civilization that could turn something so mundane as a pillow into a cosmic statement. A people who believed that to rest one's head was to align it with the horizon of creation. And as the last shadows of night dissolve, you almost want to stay there, tracing those ancient curves, wondering if the artisans ever smiled at their own precision. Maybe they did. Maybe one of them leaned back after finishing a hieroglyph and muttered, "Perfect. Even Ra will sleep well tonight."
The light in your imagined chamber has shifted again. Warmer, heavier, like the afternoon heat pressing against time itself. You feel the stillness of Egypt settle over everything. The slow pulse of the Nile beyond the window, the dry hiss of sand drifting in tiny curls along the stone floor. The world seems paused between breaths. And as you rest your head once more on the cool curve of the headrest, you realize this isn't just about sleep anymore. Because for the Egyptians, the headrest was as much about the afterlife as it was about rest. When you die, your head must be protected. Your body, wrapped carefully in linen, needs to rise again, renewed. And to do that, to resurrect, to awaken, the head must stay lifted, preserved, perfectly aligned with the cosmos. That's why these stone pillows found their way into nearly every tomb, from the pharaoh's golden chamber to the modest burial pits of workers. Sleep and death were simply two versions of the same journey. You imagine yourself standing inside a tomb now, the air still and faintly metallic. The carvings on the walls shimmer under your torch. In the corner, half buried in dust, lies a small alabaster curve, the same shape you've come to recognize. A funerary headrest, smooth and pale as moonlight. You crouch beside it, brushing off the sand, and for a moment you can see the faint traces of hieroglyphs along its base. A spell, maybe. A wish for protection? The letters flow like water. Raise your head that you may breathe the sweet air again. That inscription appears in more than one burial text. It's poetic, but also practical. When the deceased soul returns to reanimate the body, it must first lift the head, so it can breathe. The headrest becomes a literal and symbolic prop, helping the spirit transition from death's silence to the dawn of eternal life. It's hard not to feel a tingle at that thought. You, the listener, lying on your stone pillow, realize you're rehearsing the same gesture every night. Laying down to die, rising again in the morning. To the Egyptians, that rhythm wasn't morbid, it was reassuring. Each sunrise proved that rebirth was real. Each good night's sleep was a quiet promise that eternity might be gentle. One particularly famous artifact drives the point home: the headrest of Tutankhamun. Carved from ivory and inlaid with gold, it was found resting near the boy king's head, decorated with two protective figures of the god Shu holding up the sky. It's both beautiful and strangely intimate, an object designed for the eternal comfort of a teenager who would never wake again. Even in death, the Egyptians thought, he would need his neck supported and his dreams guarded. But it wasn't only royalty who slept with such care. Commoners, too, buried their dead with humble versions made from wood or clay, sometimes painted white to mimic alabaster. Many were found tucked under linen-wrapped skulls, precisely positioned as though the sleepers might roll over at any moment. archaeologists often describe these discoveries with surprising tenderness. The objects aren't grand, but they're personal, tokens of love left for someone's eternal rest. And here's where it gets delightfully eerie. Some of those headrests weren't just passive props, they were inscribed with full-on magic spells. The Book of the Dead, a kind of celestial travel guide for the soul, included incantations specifically for headrests. One passage reads, "Place this under the head of the deceased. The head shall not be taken from him." A bit grim, but practical. It's hard to be resurrected if your head goes missing. Historians still argue whether these texts were meant to be taken literally or symbolically. Did they really believe the soul's success depended on a good pillow, or was the gesture more poetic, a comfort for the living, not the dead? No one knows for sure, but considering how many were found carved with personal names, prayers, and tiny depictions of gods, it's clear these headrests were intimate companions, not just decorative items. You run your fingertips along one such imaginary carving, the lion-headed goddess Sekhmet, guardian of sleep and destruction alike. Her eyes are fierce, but her posture protective. Perhaps this specific pillow belonged to a warrior or priest, someone who wanted both strength and serenity in the next world. The stone beneath her paws glows faintly in your mind's eye, as though absorbing the torchlight. And suddenly, you see the quiet logic of it all. In life, the headrest kept your head above the dust and the heat. In death, it lifted your spirit toward the light. It was a bridge between waking and sleeping, between this world and the next. You can't help but admire the audacity of a civilization that planned so thoroughly for rest that they refused to let a little thing like death interrupt it. But there's something almost tender hanging in that practicality. You can imagine the family of a deceased artisan standing over the wrapped body, carefully tucking the headrest beneath his skull. Maybe they whisper something like, "May your head stay high, my love." Maybe they even smile a little, thinking how fussy he always was about his neck angle. Death doesn't erase those small habits, it immortalizes them. One quirky find from Saqqara drives the point home. A headrest made entirely from limestone, shaped like a bird stretching its wings, the inscription reading, "May you rise like the falcon of dawn." You can picture the sculptor, halfway between artistry and faith, blending ergonomics with metaphor. It's an object that looks both perfectly functional and impossibly poetic. And yet there's still debate. Modern scholars puzzling over whether the ancient Egyptians genuinely slept on the same kinds of headrests they buried. Some argue the funerary versions were purely symbolic, too ornate or heavy for daily use. Others insist they were exact replicas designed to make the transition to eternity seamless. After all, who wants to spend eternity adjusting to new furniture? As you rest your head once more in your imagination, the air in the tomb feels cooler now. The stone under your neck is silent, unyielding, but somehow comforting. You understand the truth the Egyptians held dear, that rest and resurrection are twins, and the pillow stone is their shared cradle. Somewhere above ground, the sun rolls higher, the Nile gleams, and the living world carries on. Down here, though, in this gentle dark, you feel the peace of those who believed that even death could be designed for comfort. The kind of peace that says, "Close your eyes, your head is safe, and morning will always come."
You move now from the tomb's stillness to a brighter world, the bustle of an Egyptian workshop, alive with the music of tools and murmured prayer. The smell of powdered stone and beeswax floats in the air, and you find yourself surrounded by artisans in linen kilts, their skin shimmering with fine dust. You've entered the place where dreams are literally carved. Here, the humble headrest begins its life. A block of alabaster sits on the floor like a captive moon, waiting to be transformed. You watch as one craftsman, his forearms corded with effort, leans over it, tapping with a copper chisel. Each strike is deliberate, patient, rhythmic. No one here hurries. In Egypt, even sleep is shaped with ceremony. The workshop hums with the sound of creation, scraping, polishing, the soft crunch of crushed sand smoothing edges. A boy pumps a bellows to keep a small fire alive for heating tools. Nearby, another artisan uses a thin reed to sketch the curve of the pillow top directly on the stone surface. The line arcs like a crescent moon, familiar now, the perfect geometry you've come to know. You crouch closer, feeling the grit under your knees. The craftsman explains that each curve must balance perfectly. If one side dips even slightly, the head will tilt wrong, and the soul might lose its way in dreams. You nod gravely, as though this makes total sense. And in their world, it does. Historians still argue whether such workshops were attached to temples or worked independently under royal contract, but the evidence suggests both. Some were small family operations, others royal ateliers, producing objects for the pharaoh's household. Each had its rituals. Before a new headrest was started, the lead craftsman might murmur a short prayer to Ptah, the god of creation, patron of artisans, asking that his hands carve peace into stone. You glance at the tools scattered around, copper chisels, dolerite hammerstones, smoothed pebbles for polishing. There's a kind of serenity in their simplicity. The process hasn't changed much in thousands of years. You can almost imagine modern sculptors nodding in approval. Yet every strike here carries spiritual weight. A misshapen headrest isn't just a failed product, it's a potential affront to the order of Ma'at. Sleep must align with the universe, and that means the angle of your net cannot offend the gods. The air in the workshop vibrates with fine dust. You smell the faint tang of metal, the chalky dryness of powdered limestone, and underneath it, the sweetness of oil lamps burning animal fat. It's a strangely calming blend, the perfume of craftsmanship. You watch as another artisan adds finishing touches to a wooden headrest. The grain of the tamarisk wood glows golden in the light. He rubs it with a mixture of resin and beeswax, bringing out a soft sheen. Then, carefully, he carves a tiny protective figure on the underside, a crouched Bess, tongue out, ready to ward off the bad dreams of whoever will rest there. There's laughter as someone points out that Bess looks cross-eyed to Might. The craftsman grins, adjusts a line, and shrugs. "Even gods have bad days," he says, and everyone chuckles softly. The humor feels timeless. You realize that even in a world ruled by divine precision, people still found room for imperfection and jokes about sleepy gods. One quirky discovery from actual digs confirms this humanity: unfinished headrests with mistakes. Some have lopsided tops, others cracked bases. A few were abandoned mid-carving, as though the stone itself had decided, not tonight. Archaeologists sometimes find these pieces tucked in corners, perhaps left as offerings, flawed but still sacred. The man working before you now pauses, tilts the stone toward the light, and runs his fingers along the curve. Then he takes a piece of fine sand and begins to polish, moving in slow, patient circles. The rhythm is hypnotic. The headrest's surface begins to glow faintly, like captured moonlight. You can almost feel how smooth it would be under your neck,
cool, unyielding, perfectly contoured. When he finishes, he dusts his hands and inspects the piece from every angle. Satisfied, he dips his thumb into a small bowl of red ochre and paints a short line of hieroglyphs along the base. For good sleep and safe dreams. It's a small flourish, a whisper of blessing. You realize how much of Egyptian life blurred the line between craftsmanship and magic. To carve was to create order. To polish was to make something pure. And when it came to the pillow stone, that act of creation carried a quiet intimacy. Each piece touched a face, a life, a night. Some scholars think apprentices were trained on broken stones before being allowed to carve for living clients. Others suggest that the headrest's simple form made it ideal for beginners. But looking around this workshop, it's clear that even simplicity demands reverence. Every motion is precise, deliberate, no shortcuts. The sound of scraping fills the air like waves. You start to feel drowsy watching it. Each movement rhythmic, steady, like breathing. The artisan polishes, the boy fans the coals, the chisel taps again. It's the kind of sound that could lull you into a trance if you let it. And maybe that's the point. For the Egyptians, the act of making something could itself be meditative. Creating a headrest wasn't just labor, it was a ritual of calm, a rehearsal for the stillness it would one day provide. In this room, you can feel the heartbeat of a civilization that prized balance in every detail. You catch the craftsman's eye one last time. He smiles faintly and places the finished piece beside a few others lined up on a low shelf. They gleam softly in the half-light, identical yet unique, like moon phases captured in stone. He wipes his brow, looks toward the window, and mutters a brief thanks to Ptah. Then he reaches for another raw block. The work continues, unhurried, endless. In Egypt, even the art of sleep was built to last forever. You take one last look around the workshop, the tools, the dust motes dancing in sunlight, and the rows of sleeping crescents waiting for their owners. And you realize you've just witnessed the birth of peace itself, shaped by steady hands and patient hearts.
You step outside the workshop, blinking in the strong Egyptian light, and find yourself surrounded by completed headrests stacked neatly like miniature sculptures. They gleam in shades of cream, ivory, and pale gold. The variety catches your eye, each one different in weight, color, and texture. You realize now that not all stone pillows were created equal. Some are smooth alabaster, translucent enough that sunlight glows faintly through them. Others are carved from simple limestone, their surface rougher, more practical. And tucked in the shade, you see a few made of dark ebony and polished ivory, fit for royalty. You reach out to touch one of each, and your fingertips meet a surprising range of sensations. The faint chill of stone, the silky warmth of wood, the faint greasy coolness of carved tusk. The choice of material wasn't just about comfort, it was a statement. In ancient Egypt, even your pillow declared who you were. Alabaster was for those who could afford eternal luxury. Its translucence symbolized purity. Ivory, imported and rare, carried prestige and the faint aroma of distant lands. Meanwhile, wood was the practical choice for scribes, merchants, and anyone whose head didn't merit a monument. And then, for the poorest households, there were clay versions, baked in small kilns, fragile but serviceable. You picture a nobleman reclining on alabaster, a priest resting on polished tamarisk, a laborer with his head on a simple terracotta ark. 3 different lives, one identical mead. Rest in the sweltering dark. Historians still argue whether material choice reflected spiritual rank or merely economic standing. Some point to inscriptions that link alabaster to the purity of the afterlife, while others insist it was simply a question of wealth and status. Either way, every headrest told a quiet story of identity. You stoop to inspect the underside of one. A craftsman has scratched a name into the base, just a few hieroglyphs now worn down. You imagine this belonged to someone important enough to mark ownership. Perhaps a physician, maybe a favorite servant in a noble household. You find yourself smiling at the thought that even in a world obsessed with eternity, people still worried about someone stealing their pillow. A breeze stirs through the courtyard, lifting the smell of stone dust mixed with palm resin. It's oddly refreshing, and you start to understand why these materials mattered. Stone kept its cool long into the night, holding the faint chill of evening air, even when the room sweltered. Wood offered a bit more give, slightly springy if carved right, less shocking to the skin. Ivory, on the other hand, radiated an almost mystical smoothness. Imagine laying your head on that after a day under the sun, like sleeping on moonlight. There's a small table nearby where workers experiment with pigments. One of them is painting a base crimson red, another applying a faint layer of blue glaze. You hadn't expected color. But yes, some headrests were decorated, painted, even gilded. The colors weren't just for beauty, they symbolized divine protection. Red for vitality, blue for rebirth, gold for the light of Ra himself. You notice how the artisans treat each piece like a living being. A man brushes dust off an alabaster one as though it could sneeze. Another hums a lullaby under his breath while polishing. You can't tell if he's doing it for himself or the stone. Either way, the act feels tender, even sacred. One quirky fact pops into your mind. A few pillow stones have been found with tiny insets, bits of copper or lapis lazuli embedded into the base. Scholars debate whether these served magical purposes or were simply decorative. Maybe both. Egypt never saw much difference between beauty and power. You crouch by the clay ones, the humblest of the group. They look fragile, faintly uneven. You can imagine the hands that shaped them, quick, efficient, maybe even bored after a long day of hauling mud bricks. Yet there's still a kind of grace in them. They're the proof that sleep, like bread, belonged to everyone. Someone nearby is testing the strength of a finished piece. He sets it on the ground and presses down with both palms. The headrest doesn't budge. He nods, satisfied, then flips it over and rubs the edge with a strip of goat leather. A faint squeak, a gleam, and suddenly it's perfect. You start to notice patterns in the designs. The rich prefer headrests carved with protective motifs like lotus flowers, ankhs, or stylized eyes of Horus along the sides. The common ones? Mostly plain, though occasionally marked with small crosses or dotted circles, perhaps family symbols or shorthand prayers. Even here, art is never just decoration, it's insurance for the soul. You imagine someone placing their head on one of these at night. The surface cools their skin. The weight of the day dissolves. Outside, frogs croak along the canal. Inside, the faint scent of incense curls from a small burner. And beneath the skull, that perfect arc of carved stone keeps the neck aligned and the soul balanced. Comfort, science, and faith in one neat curve. Historians have long puzzled over how anyone could sleep on something so firm. Tests on replicas show that surprisingly the design supports the head well when paired with a woven mat or small linen roll. The curve cradles the base of the skull while allowing air to circulate beneath. Ingenious, really. An ergonomic triumph millennia before the word existed. You think of modern cooling gel pillows and smirk. The Egyptians got there first, minus the marketing department. Still, there were occasional risks. One papyrus hints that headrest use could stiffen the neck of the careless sleeper. So perhaps there were complaints too. ancient versions of, "This thing gave me a crick." Some things never change. You linger a while longer, running your fingers over the different textures. You can feel centuries of thought carved into each surface. The Egyptians didn't design by accident. They studied comfort as carefully as they studied stars. In one corner of the yard sits a pile of rejected fragments. Some have broken mid-carving, others misaligned. You notice a cat lounging on top of them, clearly unimpressed by millennia of human effort. She stretches lazily, then curls up right there, head resting on a shard of limestone, perfectly content. Maybe she's the truest Egyptian of them all. As the sun dips, shadows stretch across the courtyard, and the polished headrests catch the last orange light. They glow faintly like tiny suns in reverse, cool, quiet, waiting. You feel a strange affection for them, these small anchors of serenity. They're more than artifacts. They're distilled calm, the science of rest captured in matter. When the workers pack up for the evening, they line the headrests in careful rows and cover them with linen sheets to keep the dust off. You watch them walk away, leaving behind a field of covered shapes that look almost like sleeping figures themselves. The breeze softens. The noise fades. For a moment, it's just you and the whisper of air over stone. Egypt's oldest lullaby.
The sun has now dipped lower, and the courtyard grows quiet. You wander back through narrow streets lined with clay brick homes, the smell of evening bread and smoke curling from open windows. Somewhere, a child laughs, and you follow the sound until you find yourself at the edge of a small shrine. It's here that you begin to understand something deeper, the strange reverence Egyptians held for the neck itself. The human neck, in this world, isn't just anatomy. It's a bridge, a sacred passage between mind and heart, spirit and body. You lean against a worn column and trace the hieroglyphs carved into the stone. There it is again, the symbol of the neck and windpipe, called wesar, meaning strength. It's everywhere once you notice it, tucked in inscriptions, painted in tombs, even shaped subtly into the curves of jewelry. To them, the neck was the literal axis of life, where the breath of the gods entered. So, of course, a pillow that supported the neck wasn't merely a tool of comfort, it was a guardian of the bridge between worlds. You imagine lying down on one of those alabaster crescents again. The curve fits under your skull, and the arch lifts your throat ever so slightly, protecting, not pressing. In that position, the Egyptians believed your life force could flow freely, unbroken, even during the vulnerability of sleep. You think of how, in modern times, we talk about posture and spine alignment as if we invented the concept. But here, thousands of years ago, people were already considering the sacred geometry of the human body. A straight neck meant balance. Balance meant harmony, and harmony meant peace, in both the physical and cosmic sense. Historians still argue whether the Egyptians consciously designed their pillows around this spiritual symbolism, or if the connection evolved later through religious interpretation. Some texts mention the headrest as a protector of the head from evil spirits who attack through the throat. Others treat it simply as an object of daily use. But then again, in Egypt, daily use was always halfway to ritual. You step closer to a small altar where a painted relief shows the god Ptah Osiris reclining on a curved headrest. The image is serene, the god's chin lifted, eyes half closed, as if floating between breath and dream. Around him, lines of text speak of keeping the head high and opening the airway of eternity. You can almost hear the ancient priest intoning those words over a sleeping body, reassuring the soul that its breath would not falter in the night. And there's another layer, one that feels more personal. The neck is also where vulnerability lies. It's the place you expose when you trust, the point of surrender. Maybe the Egyptians sensed that too, and in shaping their pillows, they offered protection for this tender spot. You feel that instinctively, the way one might wrap a scarf on a cold morning or check their pulse when anxious. A breeze drifts from the river, cool and heavy with the scent of mud and lotus. The air slips around your neck, and for a moment, you understand the ancient obsession with that sensation, the mix of fragility and strength. You can almost feel why they might fear losing it in sleep. One quirky tidbit from excavation records makes you smile. Some headrests were found with carved snakes or cobras coiled along their bases. The scholars call them protective motifs, but you can't help imagining some ancient prankster saying, "You'll sleep better knowing there's a snake under your head." Practical magic with a dash of mischief. You step away from the altar and continue through the settlement, the streets narrowing until you reach a low wall where an elderly woman is sitting, weaving flax fibers into thread. She looks up, smiles faintly, and points to your neck as if noticing something out of place. She murmurs words you can't quite catch, but her gesture is clear. Be careful what supports it. You thank her silently, though she's probably not real. Just another echo in this long dream of Egypt. Somewhere in the distance, a priest chants. The words drift faintly. May your neck be upright. May your breath be eternal. It sounds like a lullaby, a gentle reminder that every inhale connects you to the divine. You picture an entire civilization built on that awareness, a people who slept not to escape the world, but to align with it. As twilight settles, you pass another set of reliefs, this time showing the goddess Mot balancing her feather of truth upon a human throat. The symbolism is dizzying and delicate. To speak truth, to breathe harmony, to keep the neck steady even under judgment. You can almost hear the pillow carvers inserting that feather somewhere beneath the curve, unseen but felt. You stop at a small household shrine. A clay figurine of Bes, the squat, grinning guardian, is perched beside a miniature headrest, painted red. A charm against evil, perhaps, but also a comfort, a reminder that, while the gods protected you, they also had your back, or in this case, your neck. You can't help imagining an Egyptian family settling down for the night. A father adjusts his wooden headrest, a mother hums a short hymn, and children curl on mats beside them. Someone sneezes, someone laughs, and a cat curls between the feet of the bed. There's no electricity, no hum of machinery, just breathing, insects, and the faint clatter of riverboats beyond the walls. And under every head, that quiet arc of protection. There's a simple beauty in that uniform gesture. Each person, regardless of rank, resting the same vulnerable part of themselves on the same design. It's democratic in a way. You can build pyramids or haul bricks all day, but at night, your neck still needs the same gentle lift. You lean back against the wall, imagining the rhythm of sleep in this place. The air cools as the last light fades. A few torches flicker. The smell of baked clay lingers. You tilt your own head back slightly and realize how easy it is to feel what they felt. The weight of the day melting through your shoulders, the air brushing your throat like a whisper. One last thought crosses your mind before the darkness takes hold. Maybe the Egyptians weren't just protecting their necks. Maybe they were teaching themselves to rest with dignity, to lift the head even in surrender. It's not about comfort, it's about poise, even in dreaming. You close your eyes imagining that perfect crescent beneath you, the smooth arc that holds both body and spirit in place. Somewhere beyond the walls, a temple bell sounds once, twice, then fades into the silence. And you find yourself breathing slowly, steadily, like one of them.
The night deepens, and the stars bloom overhead like 1,000 tiny oil lamps. You follow their shimmer back toward the temple quarter, where the air is thicker with incense and quiet voices echo off the stone. This is the hour of spells, the time when priests whisper to the darkness to keep sleepers safe from whatever prowls between worlds. You pass under a lintel carved with the shape of an open eye, its pupil inlaid with black glass that catches the torchlight. Inside, the temple feels cooler, hollowed out by centuries of devotion. You move softly along the corridor, your sandals whispering against the flagstones, until you reach a small chamber where a low altar glows with lamplight. Here, a scribe sits cross-legged, unrolling a strip of papyrus. The faint crackle of the scroll is the only sound. You crouch beside him, peering over his shoulder, and see what he's reading. The spell for lifting the head in the night. The words flow like a lullaby. May your neck be firm as the sun's pillar. May your head be raised like Ra at dawn. May no demon press you down. The language feels half prayer, half engineering manual. You realize that even in sleep, the Egyptians were planning for stability, physical, spiritual, cosmic. He pauses to dip his reed pen, then murmurs softly, testing the incantation's rhythm. You can hear the shape of each syllable, designed to roll like breathing. One line translates roughly as, "Let the headrest hold the dreams in place." It's poetic, but also oddly scientific, like saying, "May your REM cycles remain undisturbed." Historians still argue whether such spells were meant to be chanted aloud by the living or inscribed for the dead. Some tombs contain pillow stones etched with miniature hieroglyphs of protection, coiled serpents, tiny eyes, or the figure of a deity named Imseti, one of the 4 sons of Horus, protector of the liver, and, by some symbolic extension, the breath. Maybe those designs weren't mere decoration, but literal magic woven into the sleeper's environment. You move closer to the altar. On it rests a small headrest of dark wood, its base carved with lines of text so fine you have to squint. The priest touches it reverently, as if the stone itself could hear him. He whispers the words again, slower now, until they begin to sound like the rhythm of the Nile's waves. One quirky discovery from archaeology adds a touch of humor to this solemn ritual. A few headrests were found with inscriptions that read almost like bedtime reminders, phrases such as, "Rise well," or "May your head not ache." Imagine inscribing your pillow with, "Sleep tight, don't let the scarabs bite." Practical magic meets parental advice. You lean against a column, watching the ritual unfold. The priest lights a small bundle of myrrh. The smoke rises in soft spirals, brushing the ceiling. The scent is heavy, resinous, faintly sweet. It mixes with the cool stone air until everything feels suspended between dream and waking. Another attendant enters carrying small amulets, tiny figures of Bes, Taweret, and Thoth. He arranges them around the headrest like a protective circle. You recognize the rotund, bearded face of Bes, the household god who scared away evil spirits by being so spectacularly ugly that even nightmares would flee. You can't help but grin a little. Egyptians, it seems, invented the concept of so ugly it's cute long before plush toys. The priest finishes the chant and places his palm gently on the top of the headrest. "Let no shadow cross this sleeper," he murmurs, voice so soft it's almost a breath. The words vibrate faintly through the stone. Then he exhales and sits back, his work done. You glance around the chamber. Shelves line the walls filled with amulets shaped like tiny eyes, onks, and lotus flowers. Each one is a promise of safety for the night. To your right, a half-finished papyrus shows a sketch of a person lying on their side, head slightly raised on a stone pillow. A halo of protective symbols surround them. It looks almost like a medical diagram drawn by someone who also happened to believe in spirits. You find yourself thinking about modern rituals, night lights, white noise machines, calming playlists. We still surround ourselves with little protections before sleep. The Egyptians simply did it with more style and a stronger sense of cosmic threat. The priest turns to you, as if noticing your presence, though you're only a traveler in this drifting dream. Sleep is the brother of death, but not his servant, he says calmly. His gaze is steady, ancient. The head must rise again each morning, like the sun. You nod, unsure whether to respond, and he smiles faintly before turning back to his scroll. The candles flicker, and for a moment his face vanishes into shadow. The sound of the Nile filters faintly through the open doorway, a low, constant sigh. Outside, the night hums with crickets and the occasional bark of a distant dog. You realize how deeply the Egyptians must have listened to the world while they slept, trusting those familiar noises to guard the edges of their dreams. As you step back toward the exit, you pass a small alcove filled with personal amulets left by worshippers. There's a child's clay headrest, a fragment of linen, and a small note written in careful hieratic script. You can barely make it out, but the translation would be something like, "Keep my dreams light and my heart still." You linger there a moment longer, feeling the weight of centuries pressing softly around you. All these people, all these nights, each one preparing to lie down and surrender the self, trusting a sliver of carved stone and a few whispered words to hold back the dark. You smile to yourself. Maybe we haven't changed that much. We still whisper to the dark, hoping someone or something is listening. When you step outside, the stars seem brighter than before, the air gentler. You walk slowly through the courtyard, past sleeping guards and the faint glow of temple lamps. Somewhere nearby, a cat leaps silently onto a wall and watches you go, eyes gleaming like polished onyx. You give a small bow in return, because here everything is sacred, especially the things that watch over sleep.
You walk beyond the temple walls, down toward the edge of the Nile, where the water gleams black and silver under the stars. The night hums with insects, and the current murmurs softly, like a living thing whispering secrets. You crouch near the water's edge, cupping a handful to your lips. It tastes faintly of silt and moonlight, the same water that carried kings and fishermen, the same that carried souls to their final rest. You glance back toward the city, dim torches, distant songs, the slow rhythm of life. And you realize that for the Egyptians, sleep itself wasn't an absence, it was a voyage. They believed that when you closed your eyes, your soul, your ba, rose gently from your sleeping body and drifted through the unseen realms. Like a bird, it would travel the landscapes of the afterlife, visiting gods, ancestors, or, if it was unlucky, unpleasant places best left undescribed. The headrest didn't just hold your neck, it served as the launch pad for that nightly expedition. You imagine yourself lying on one of those stone crescents, the curve cold under your skull, your breath slowing until your consciousness begins to slip free. The Egyptians thought of the head as the anchor of the soul, the portal for dreams. The pillow stone, cool and still, kept that portal open just enough for safe passage. Historians still argue whether the Egyptians viewed dreams as divine messages or simply as the echoes of the day. Some papyri treat dreams as instructions from gods. Others depict them as random wanderings of the Ka, the vital spirit. Either way, sleep was never idle time. It was an appointment with the unseen. A warm wind rolls over the river, carrying the smell of papyrus reeds and distant cooking fires. You hear faint chanting from a nearby boat, a group of fishermen singing softly as they cast their nets. Their rhythm is slow, hypnotic,
almost like a spell itself. You feel your pulse syncing with it, your thoughts floating outward, following the imaginary flight of your ba through the dark. In this moment, you can see how science and spirituality blurred for them. They didn't separate the biology of rest from the mythology of travel. Sleep was both repair and revelation. Your body rested while your soul gathered news. Dreams could warn you of danger, foretell illness, or grant divine approval. A lucky dream could change your fate. An unlucky one could demand offerings or purification rituals. A quirky bit of evidence adds charm to this cosmic seriousness. Archaeologists have found dream manuals, scrolls listing specific dream images and their meanings. Dream of a cat? Good fortune. Dream of eating crocodile? Trouble ahead. Dream of standing on a high roof? Promotion likely. Essentially, the world's first dream dictionaries, long before Google searches and self-help books. You close your eyes for a moment and imagine one of those dream voyages. You drift upward, light as dust. The city shrinks below. You pass over temples, palm groves, the shimmer of the Nile. Somewhere above, the stars seem to pulse with deliberate rhythm, as if signaling messages you can almost understand. Your path crosses with other dreamers, souls floating like fireflies, trailing whispers of their waking lives. Some fly steady and sure, others flicker uncertainly, struggling to stay aloft. And beneath you, the faint glow of sleeping bodies reflects the light of their stone headrests, each one a tiny horizon between body and spirit. You feel the cool tug of the wind through your hair. You're weightless, thoughtless, somewhere between physics and faith. Then, faintly, you hear a sound, an echoing murmur like the Nile itself speaking your name. A priest's voice cuts through your drifting. Return with peace, rise renewed. It's the same phrase carved on countless tombs, the universal Egyptian wish for safe passage. Through night or death, it didn't matter. The meaning was the same. You begin to descend, drawn back toward the warmth of your body. The stone pillow waits patiently, its curve familiar, like the horizon of your own thoughts. Your spirit settles again, your breathing evens out, and you wake not with surprise, but with recognition. In Egypt, waking was just the second half of sleeping, a daily resurrection. The belief in that cycle shaped everything. The rising sun was Ra reborn, the waking sleeper a miniature version of the same miracle. Each morning was proof that the cosmos still functioned. The pillow stone wasn't just comfort, it was participation in that cosmic system. You open your eyes and find dawn rising pale and soft over the water. The fisherman's song has faded, replaced by the first bird calls. The air is cooler now, tinged with the faint sweetness of river bloom. You picture 1,000 Egyptians stirring across the land, the farmer stretching on his mat, the noble rolling off his alabaster headrest, the priest wiping sleep from his eyes. All of them, in their own way, have completed the nightly voyage and returned intact. You wonder how many remembered their dreams, how many tried to read divine hints between half-forgotten images. A scribe nearby begins writing again. You peek at his papyrus. It's a list of dreams reported by temple visitors. A man dreamt of a golden fish. It means wealth. A woman dreamt of a broken vase. It means words lost. The care with which he writes makes you smile. You can tell he believes in it, or at least wants to. You realize that in their world, sleeping was the closest you could come to touching the gods without dying. The headrest wasn't just furniture, it was sacred technology, a stabilizer for the soul's engine. You pick up a small, cracked piece of stone half buried near the water's edge. Its shape is unmistakable, the top of a long-lost headrest. You brush off the sand and run your fingers over its smooth curve. It feels strangely alive, as though it remembers every neck that once rested there, every dream that once launched into the starry dark. For a fleeting moment, you consider keeping it, a souvenir from eternity. But instead, you set it gently back in the sand, facing east, toward the rising sun. Because that's what the Egyptians would have done. Everything faced the light, even their sleep. The morning sun lifts over the horizon, brushing gold across the Nile and the sand beyond. The air shifts, cool dew giving way to dry warmth. You walk inland now, following a caravan track lined with hoofprints and fragments of pottery. The traders who once passed here carried spices, ivory, and fabrics, but they also carried ideas, and among those ideas, strangely enough, was the humble headrest. It's easy to forget how connected the ancient world really was. We tend to imagine Egypt as an isolated golden kingdom, locked between dunes and riverbanks. But in truth, its people traded, traveled, and swapped stories from Nubia to Mesopotamia. And just as spices and copper moved along those routes, so did small practical comforts, like the curved pillow stone. You picture a trader loading a bundle of alabaster headrests onto his boat, not because everyone wanted one, but because some neighboring land might see their charm, their simplicity, their strange elegance. The design was so functional it barely needed translation: a cradle for the neck, a cooling curve for the head. Historians still argue whether Egypt invented the headrest first or borrowed the idea from deeper Africa. Evidence from Nubia and farther south, modern-day Ethiopia and Kenya, shows headrests that look remarkably similar, some even older than Egypt's Old Kingdom examples. It's one of those chicken or scarab dilemmas that scholars love to debate endlessly. What's certain, though, is that these objects traveled. Across the continent, variations emerged, some carved from ivory, others from wood, bone, or even metal. You can imagine each region adjusting the curve to fit local customs or hairstyles. In some African cultures, elaborate hair sculptures needed just as much protection as those of Egyptian nobles. The headrest became an elegant solution to a universal problem: how to rest without ruining your masterpiece. You pause in the shade of an acacia, running your fingers over the bark. The wind carries a dry scent of dust and heat. In the distance, a camel groans like a bored philosopher. Somewhere you hear the faint jingling of bronze bells, a caravan returning from the Red Sea, perhaps. Among those merchants, there's probably someone carrying an Egyptian trinket, a blue faience amulet, a tiny alabaster jar, or maybe even a small stone headrest, the kind meant for a traveler's use, polished smooth by countless nights on the road, the ancient equivalent of a portable neck pillow, minus the inflatable part. One quirky tidbit: some archaeologists have found headrests so tiny that no human head could possibly fit. They were made for the dead, or for statues. Imagine that. A stone resting another stone. A meta-sleep, if you will. As Egypt's influence spread through trade and conquest, so did its designs. In Mesopotamia, artisans made their own head supports, though softer, more pillow-like. In China, centuries later, porcelain headrests would appear, cool, curved, and decorated with painted dreams. Some scholars suggest that Egypt's idea may have filtered eastward along ancient trade routes, carried by whispers and merchants rather than armies. You picture the concept traveling the way ideas always do, not as conquest, but as convenience. A caravaner tries the Egyptian stone pillow one night and wakes without neck pain. He commissions a local craftsman to make something similar in wood. That craftsman tweaks the curve. His neighbor adds a carving. A new version is born. By the time the design reaches East Africa, it has become both a practical object and a cultural marker. Among the Somali, Oromo, and Dinka peoples, headrests were handed down through generations, personal, even sacred, like a family signature. They weren't just for sleep, but for identity. Some were so cherished that when the owner died, the headrest was buried with them, echoing the Egyptian custom that started it all. You find yourself smiling at the thought. Across time and geography, people have always loved comfort and symbolism. The stone pillow was the perfect fusion of both. There's a story, half legend, half field report, about a Nubian chieftain who refused to sleep without his ivory headrest, even when traveling through enemy lands. When his caravan was ambushed, he hid the headrest under his robe instead of his gold. His captors, confused but polite, assumed it was some kind of relic and let him keep it. He reportedly told them, "Gold wakes a man's greed, stone wakes his dreams." Whether he actually said that or not doesn't matter. It sounds like something an ancient would say, doesn't it? You work farther now, crossing into the lands once called Punt, a mysterious trading partner of Egypt, possibly in modern-day Eritrea or Somalia. Here, in the humid heat, you imagine wooden headrests crafted from fragrant tamarind, carved with animal shapes, a gazelle's legs for supports, a lion's paw beneath the curve. Sleep elevated, literally and spiritually. Even the symbolism shifted slightly with each culture. In Egypt, the headrest guarded the neck and kept demons at bay. In some African traditions, it linked the dreamer to ancestral spirits. In Japan, centuries later, similar curved supports, called makura, served a purely aesthetic role to preserve hairstyles, a surprising continuity of vanity across continents and millennia. And yet, for all their variation, these headrests shared something subtle, a quiet dignity. They were simple, practical, and strangely meditative objects. Not soft, not indulgent, just enough. You take a moment to sit on a low rock, feeling the desert's heat seep up through your legs. You think of how something so small, a crescent of stone or wood, could travel the world, adapting to every culture it touched. That's the magic of ancient design. It doesn't shout, it whispers. One historian once joked that the headrest was the USB port of the ancient world, universal, functional, endlessly compatible. You chuckle at that. Maybe if the Egyptians had Wi-Fi, they'd have carved their passwords on those things too. You glance toward the horizon again. The air shimmers with heat, and the line between sand and sky wavers like a half-remembered dream. Somewhere beyond that, perhaps, in another time entirely, someone else is resting their head on a similar curve, breathing in the same rhythm, their thoughts floating through the same shared idea, that rest is both physical and spiritual, comfort and connection. The ancient Egyptian pillow stones didn't stay locked in tombs. They migrated quietly, like seeds caught on the wind of human need. And wherever they landed, they rooted into culture. Every traveler who used one added a little to the design. And in that way, a whole world of sleep interconnected long before the word globalization ever existed. You rise, dust off your robes, and continue walking. The sand crunches softly beneath your feet. Ahead, the road bends toward the coast, where ships wait to sail east. Maybe some of them carry spices, maybe others, dreams.
The path leads you back toward the river, toward the heart of royal life, where the pharaohs ruled not just by day, but also, curiously, by night. You can almost see the palace rising ahead, long corridors of limestone and gold, where torches flicker and cool shadows whisper secrets. And somewhere inside those chambers, beyond walls carved with lotus and falcon motifs, the ritual of royal sleep begins. You step into the perfumed air of the royal quarters. The sound softens instantly. No marketplace chatter here, no bleating goats, no hammering artisans, only the faint splash of fountains and the swish of linen garments. You move deeper into the stillness until you reach a wide room draped in deep blue fabric, embroidered with silver stars. This is where the pharaoh sleeps. You might expect a grand feather mattress, something worthy of divine comfort, but no. There, at the head of the gilded bed frame, rests the same humble design you've seen in tombs and workshops, a curved headrest of polished stone inlaid with gold and etched with hieroglyphs. The Pillow of Kings is still, quite literally, a rock. It's both impressive and oddly relatable. Even the ruler of the two lands values a good neck alignment. Royal sleep wasn't taken lightly. To the Egyptians, the pharaoh's rest was more than recovery. It was a nightly reenactment of cosmic balance. As Ra, the sun god, sank into the underworld to fight chaos, so did the pharaoh's spirit descend into the dream realm. His head had to be supported perfectly for that journey. A tilted angle might invite bad dreams, or worse, unbalance the divine order. Servants enter the chamber quietly, preparing for the sacred slumber. One adjusts the incense burner, filling the air with frankincense and myrrh. Another smooths the linen sheets, woven so finely they shimmer like river light. A third places a tiny amulet beneath the headrest, a charm of Hathor, goddess of beauty and protection. You watch, half amazed, half amused. You can't help thinking that this is the ancient world's version of a high-end spa routine, complete with aromatherapy and cosmic insurance. A court scribe kneels nearby recording the time of rest, because yes, even that was documented. Historians have found notes detailing sleep rituals, when the pharaoh retired, when he awoke, and even what dreams were reported to the temple priests the following morning. Imagine your sleep tracker sharing data with the gods. You can almost hear the priest murmuring a low chant. Rest, son of Ra, may your head be lifted, may your breath travel safe, may your dreams guard the land. The words roll like a lullaby, ancient and measured. The pharaoh closes his eyes, and the headrest cradles his neck perfectly. His body relaxes, but the room stays alert. For even while he sleeps, attendants remain, standing silently in corners like shadows. Royal dreams were state business. Historians still argue whether pharaohs truly believed their dreams carried divine messages, or whether priests interpreted them to justify political decisions. Either way, dreams shaped decrees. A god's whisper in the night could launch a new temple, bless a war, or spare a prisoner. The line between REM sleep and royal policy was surprisingly thin. A quirky tidbit from the temple archives mentions a pharaoh, likely Thutmose IV, who claimed the god Harmachis appeared to him in a dream, promising kingship if he cleared the sand from the Sphinx. He did, and the dream stele still stands between the Sphinx's paws today, like an ancient receipt for divine motivation. You wander through another chamber now, the queen's private quarters. The scent here is lighter, more floral. A tray holds oils of lotus and blue water lily, believed to ease anxiety and induce gentle dreams. You imagine her attendants brushing her hair, applying perfume, and arranging her headrest just so. There's tenderness in the ritual, a touch of care that feels human across time. In one corner, a musician plucks a small harp softly. The notes ripple through the air, gentle and round. They say certain tones could calm the soul before sleep, aligning it with the vibrations of Ma'at, the universal order. Maybe that's true, maybe it's just good ambiance. Either way, you feel your own eyelids grow heavy as the melody floats around you. You peek toward a carved relief showing the royal couple reclining on their beds. Their heads rest upon curved supports, their eyes closed, serene. Above them, protective deities extend wings, guarding the space where body meets dream. The message is clear. Even rulers need rest, and rest itself is sacred work. You take a quiet step back, letting the image settle in your mind. There's something comforting about the thought that at the end of each grand day of politics, offerings, and ceremonies, even gods in flesh surrendered to sleep. One servant walks past you, carrying a small bronze bowl. Inside, oil glimmers, catching torchlight. He sets it near the headrest, muttering about keeping nightmares away. You realize this might be the world's oldest nightlight, practical and mystical at all once. If you listen closely, you can almost hear the hush of the royal breathing, slow, deep, rhythmic. A man or woman, divinely titled yet unmistakably mortal, resting just like you would after a long day. The stone pillow under their head has seen centuries pass and will outlast them all. Outside, crickets begin their nocturnal chorus. The Nile hums faintly beyond the palace walls. The moon paints silver across the tiled floor. The air grows still, heavy with warmth and peace. You imagine the pharaoh's dream now, a vision of stars over water, or the great sun barge sailing through darkness. Maybe he meets the gods, maybe just memories of his youth. Whatever it is, he wakes before dawn, sits up, and calls for the scribes. Another dream for the record, another night successfully navigated between worlds. You can almost picture him rubbing the back of his neck, maybe thinking, "Still stiff." You smile. Even kings can't escape that. The attendants lift the headrest carefully, clean it with a cloth soaked in scented water, and place it back precisely where it belongs. Nothing about this ritual changes for generations. It's as much a part of ruling as the crown itself. You leave the palace quietly, slipping into the pre-dawn hush. Behind you, the torches fade one by one, and the royal dreams dissolve into the pale blue of early morning. The scent of lotus follows you out, light as breath. And you think, perhaps that's the real power of these pillow stones. Not just comfort, not just ritual, but continuity. A reminder that even amid gold and conquest, everyone from king to farmer needs somewhere peaceful to rest their head.
The path from the palace winds down toward the hum of everyday life. You leave behind gold-inlaid walls and polished alabaster floors, stepping into the dust and chatter of a small Egyptian village. Here the air smells of baking bread and wet clay. Chickens cluck lazily in doorways. The Nile glitters a short walk away, its banks busy with washing, gossip, and laughter. This is where most Egyptians lived and slept, not in gilded splendor, but in mud brick houses that stayed cool by day and comfortably warm by night. The ceilings are low, the floors packed smooth by years of bare feet. You duck inside one, brushing aside a hanging reed mat. It's dim, but peaceful. A family of 5 sleeps in this single room. Parents, children, maybe a grandparent. A few woven mats lie neatly rolled in a corner, and beside them, resting casually on a low ledge, are 2 headrests. They're not alabaster or ivory like the royal kind, just simple wood, maybe acacia or sycamore, sanded smooth by use and time. You crouch to pick one up. It's lighter than you expect, balanced perfectly to cradle the curve of a neck. A modest object, yet sturdy. Someone cared enough to make it right. You run your thumb over a faint carved symbol on the base, a half circle and a few lines. A personal touch, maybe a maker's mark, or perhaps just decoration. Historians still argue whether the poor could afford such comforts or whether these were reserved for the middle class. Some suggest headrests were common enough to appear in nearly every household. Others think they were aspirational luxuries. What's clear is that ordinary people desired them for the same reasons as kings: to stay cool, to preserve their hairstyles, and maybe to feel a little divine in the process. The family's day would have ended hours ago, the father returning from the fields, the mother from grinding grain, the children half asleep by the fire. Before bed, they might have washed with river water, rubbed their skin with oil if they had any, and then stretched out side by side on reed mats. The headrest at the end of the mat served not just as comfort, but as a sort of boundary between waking and dreaming, a symbol of closure. You can almost hear their breathing now, slow and steady in the thick night air. Somewhere outside, a donkey brays like it's sharing a bad dream of its own. The sounds fade, replaced by the gentle creak of wind through the roof beams. A quirky tidbit comes to mind. Archaeologists once found a humble clay headrest molded crudely by hand. It had cracks, fingerprints still visible in the surface, and a chipped corner that someone had clearly repaired with bitumen. It wasn't beautiful, but it was cherished. Whoever owned it likely slept on it for decades. There's something touching about that, a lifetime of sleep balanced on a handful of clay. You shift your gaze to a small household shrine tucked in the corner. It's a simple thing, a painted niche with a figure of Bes, the dwarf god of protection. He was a funny-looking deity, squat and grimacing, but beloved by the common folk. They believed he guarded sleepers from evil spirits and, oddly enough, promoted good dreams and healthy childbirth. His goofy little grin must have comforted countless families through the dark. You can imagine the mother whispering a small prayer to Bes before lying down. "Keep away the night spirits. Watch my children's breath." Her voice would fade into the dark, carried away by the warm air of the room. Outside, the desert cools. A faint breeze sneaks through the doorway, stirring the hanging reeds. The faint glow of a clay lamp flickers, making the walls seem to breathe. You notice the father shift in his sleep, adjusting his head on the wooden rest. He exhales, satisfied. The everyday Egyptian didn't see his pillow stone as a luxury. It was as essential as bread or sandals. It connected him to the rhythm of the world, to Ra's journey across the sky, to the souls of the dead, to the promise of another dawn. And when that dawn came, he'd wake, stretch his shoulders, and start again. The same cycle, repeated for centuries. One archaeologist once described this kind of sleep as stoic rest. It wasn't about comfort in the modern sense, no fluff, no plush, just the assurance that rest had a purpose. You lay your head down not to escape life, but to align with it. You can't help smiling as you watch the room settle deeper into stillness. A baby stirs, then sighs back into slumber. The mother's hand moves automatically, patting the air near her child's head. The father murmurs something intelligible, perhaps a dream. You think of all the people across the millennia who've done this exact thing. Families sharing one space, breathing the same warm air, drifting in and out of the same soft silence. In their dreams, maybe the walls fall away and they walk by the river or speak with ancestors, or maybe they simply sleep without dreams at all. Either way, their pillow stones carry them through the night. Historians still argue whether the Egyptians fully separated sacred and mundane life, or if in their minds even a nap had a spiritual weight. Judging by the care they gave to sleeping objects, the latter seems true. Every act, eating, washing, resting, was a miniature ritual. You weren't just keeping your neck straight, you were keeping the universe balanced. You step back out into the alley, leaving the sleeping family behind. The village is hushed now, except for a distant dog barking at shadows. A full moon rides high above, so bright it paints the walls silver. You pause beside another doorway where an old man snores loudly, head tipped back on a chipped wooden rest. A cat curls at his feet, tail flicking with perfect disdain. His sandals are worn, his robe patched, but the expression on his face, utter peace. You think to yourself, he's got the secret all figured out. You wander a little farther and catch sight of the young craftsman still awake, working by lamplight. He's shaping a new headrest from a block of wood, his knife whispering rhythmically. Each pass releases a thin curl of shavings. He pauses occasionally to test the curve against his palm. When he's satisfied, he smiles faintly, touches the piece to his forehead in silent blessing, and sets it aside to dry. Tomorrow he'll sell it in the market, one more piece of continuity, ready for another generation of dreams. You linger, feeling the warmth of that thought. Ordinary people, extraordinary constancy. The humblest object carrying the same sacred geometry as the treasures of kings. The lamp sputters once, then dies. Darkness folds over the village like a soft blanket. The only sound now is the Nile whispering in the distance, a slow, steady heartbeat in the night. And as you stand there, the world feels wonderfully even. Kings, priests, farmers, mothers, all of them, resting under the same stars on the same small curve of shaped stone.
The sun has shifted again in your endless walk through history. You find yourself standing at a crossroads of time, where the wind carries the smell of foreign fabrics and strange spices, where Egyptian voices mingle with accents from Greece, Persia, and later Rome. The ancient kingdom you've wandered through for so long is no longer sealed in the golden bubble of dynasties. The world has found its way in, and with it, a softer idea of rest. You stroll through a bustling Alexandria street, the sea glinting in the distance. Merchants shout in Greek, Egyptian, and something in between. Sailors unload rolls of linen, baskets of figs, jars of oil, and, yes, bales of imported fabrics. Fine wool from the north, cotton from India, silks that shimmer like the Nile at dusk. Comfort has gone global. In one shop window, you spot something odd. A cushion. Not stone, not wood, but stuffed, soft, yielding, almost decadent. You press your palm against it and laugh quietly. The age of hard pillows is ending, one plush innovation at a time. It's strange how slowly yet surely traditions shift. The Egyptian headrest, once the height of spiritual precision, starts to seem old-fashioned. Traders bring new habits, Persian bolsters, Greek feather-stuffed bags. The elite adopt them first, as elites always do, calling it modern. The stone pillow becomes an heirloom, then a curiosity, then a relic. Historians still argue whether the shift came purely from comfort or from the changing beliefs about sleep itself. As foreign philosophies drifted into Egypt, so did the idea that dreams were not divine voyages, but mere flickers of the brain. Plato and Aristotle talked of the mind, not the soul, shaping dreams. The mystical night became a biological night. With that, perhaps, the headrest lost its magic. Still, old habits die stubbornly. In remote villages, the curved wooden pillow remains, simple and faithful. You imagine an old farmer in Thebes telling his grandson that feathers are for birds, not for men. He'd probably sleep better than most of us. A quirky tidbit here. Even as Egyptians adopted softer bedding, some medical physicians warned against it. Ancient medical texts claimed that too much softness caused sluggish blood and heavy dreams.
Apparently, even 2,000 years ago, people argued about the health benefits of firm versus soft mattresses. Some things never change. You wander into a scholar's courtyard, scrolls piled high, the air smelling faintly of ink and dust. A Greek philosopher sits cross-legged, writing by lamplight. He's fascinated by Egyptian customs, though he doesn't fully understand them. He writes that Egyptians sleep upon stones to harden the body and discipline the mind. You can almost hear him say it with admiration and a touch of confusion. Behind him, a young student lounges on a cushion, yawning extravagantly. Progress, you think, always comes with mixed reviews. You walk on, past temples turned libraries and workshops now filled with imported luxuries. A craftsman who once carved alabaster headrests now shapes marble busts for Roman patrons. His hands still remember the old curves, the delicate balance of form and function. But when you ask about pillow stones, he shrugs. He says, "The new way is softer. People don't dream the same anymore." That sentence lingers in the air. People don't dream the same anymore. You wonder if it's true. When the material world softens, does the inner one follow? Did the Egyptians' nightly voyages fade with their firm pillows, replaced by shallower sleep and gentler, forgettable dreams? You pass by an antique market, its stalls crowded with relics, broken pottery, beads, bronze mirrors, and yes, an old, cracked headrest. Its surface is worn to a dull gloss, the hieroglyphs half erased. The merchant tells you it came from a tomb long ago. He strokes it affectionately, like a pet rock. He says, "No one wants these anymore. Too uncomfortable." Then he adds, with a wink, "But the old gods still like them." You hold it for a moment. It's heavier than it looks, cold and oddly grounding in your hands. You imagine some long-dead sleeper resting their head here, dreaming of the same river, the same stars. You set it back gently. Nearby, children chase each other through the crowd, laughing. One tumbles into a pile of cushions and bursts into giggles. You think of how the Egyptians used to scold children for flattening their hair before sleep. A funny, ordinary echo across time. As centuries roll on, the pillow stone becomes an artifact rather than an object. In the late Ptolemaic and Roman periods, it's mostly seen in tombs, a traditional gesture, more symbolic than functional. The soul still needs its resting place, even if the living no longer do. You picture a Romanized Egyptian noble lying on a lush couch, surrounded by servants waving fans. His bed is draped in imported fabrics, his neck resting on something soft. Yet beside him, placed carefully at his feet, lies a small alabaster headrest. Unnecessary, but essential. An anchor to his ancestors, a superstition against forgetting. The decline of the stone pillow wasn't abrupt, it was a quiet fading, a long sigh of practicality replacing poetry. But in that fading, something tender survives. Even as the tools of sleep change, the desire for meaning in rest remains. You pause near the docks, where evening settles and sailors tie down their ropes. The Mediterranean wind smells of salt and resin. A man naps under his boat, head propped on a rolled-up net. You notice how the curve of his neck mimics that of a headrest, almost instinctive. You smile. Some shapes never really disappear. They just reincarnate. You sit down on a crate, watching lanterns flicker on the water. The city hums around you, alive with trade, ambition, conversation. But under all that noise, the ancient rhythm still beats softly. Sleep, wake, work, dream, repeat. Somewhere in a quiet tomb far up the Nile, the old kind of dream continues. Dusty, eternal, unbothered by feathers or fashion. A carved stone waits under a linen-shrouded head, cool against the heat of forever. Maybe the world forgot how to dream that way. Or maybe it didn't. You look at the shimmering line of the horizon, where sky meets water, and wonder if some part of you still carries that ancient posture of the neck, that quiet readiness for journeying through the night. The wind shifts, whispering through the palm trees. The stars emerge, faint but steady. You lean back, your own head heavy and warm, and for a brief second, you wish for the reassuring chill of stone beneath it.